Thanks. So if I could ask my guests to unmute and show their videos, that'd be fantastic. So now we are going to start talking really about technology, making trade more affordable, accessible, and timely by moving from serial to parallel. And Carl, I'm not sure if you have trademarked this phrase, but it's yours. Huh? I've taken it from you. Since we're in Kenya, I'm going to start with a very sort of Kikuyu proverb, but I'm not going to pronounce it in Kikuyu. My Kikuyu is awful. But the one who milks the cow is not the same person as the one who removes ticks from it. And that is really sort of an indication of how complex trade is and how many people there are that have a stake in that particular cow, you know, during its life cycle and even afterwards. But trade really enables some more collaboration. And I think, you know, if you know the people and the entities you're doing business with, you're more likely to trust them. And a proxy for knowing them is through data. If data is transparent in real or at least in near time, this will help. But you'll also need a functioning legal framework. And that's where the model law for electronic transferable records, or MLETA, comes in. We're starting to see a digital ecosystem forming around trade, but how holistic and interoperable is that B2B ecosystem? Can I have an Expedia for business, where I select my goods, choose the route, understand customs requirements, make my payment, and track my goods door to door? What about interoperability of digital islands? How is technology allowing the right people to see the right information at the right time? I'm going to sort of take a back seat now, and I'm going to invite my panelists to introduce themselves, and then I'm delighted after that to invite Mr. David Hassanat from Dhaka, Bangladesh, to talk about his organization. So Carl, let's start with you.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. And thank you for the invitation. My name is Carl Wegner. I'm the CEO of Contour. My digital journey has been about 40 years in Asia, 25 years in banking and 15 years in tech. And the company I'm at now, Contour, is a digital trade platform, which allows corporates and banks to interact seamlessly to manage LCs and other trade products. So digitalizing that paper that used to be shipped around the world and facilitating that kind of, as you said, that connectivity and the trust factor by having live data and watching it and being able to coordinate. So thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, and welcome virtually to Nairobi. I'm going to move on to Carl now. I'd love to hear the story of Contour. I know you're famous for saying you discovered the internet, or when you discovered the internet, that was sort of a tipping point for your own career. But I'd really like to hear also what you think a solution like Contour can bring to Africa, especially given how commodities rich the continent is.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so I often say my digital journey started. This is my third startup, and I left banking once in 2000 for this new technology called the internet. It seems to have stuck, and that was for a supply chain, also a trade finance based platform. And then I left banking once again in 2016 for this new technology called blockchain, or distributed ledger. And you know, both times it's obviously it seems to have stuck. But I think the point being, I've always tried in my career to try to match the knowledge I had in trade finance with these new technologies. And I think really with if we look at trade finance, we look at digitalization of trade finance, and Daniel mentioned it as well. You know, the goods are moving faster than the information, which is just amazing, considering that you know, we can post on social media, be ubiquitous everywhere, friends all around the world, but yet, you know, a container of goods can move from, you know, maybe a 3-day journey or a 2-day journey in between Indonesia and Singapore, or maybe it's a day journey, but the documents take a week or 10 days. So especially with commodities, They're very often it's high dollar amounts, and therefore it needs a little bit more documentation. And that documentation has to go along with the it has to get there at the same time as the goods are coming. So we see, I mean, right now Contour is available in 51 countries, including many countries in Africa due to our support from Standard Chartered Bank. And there's tremendous opportunity for commodities to be imported and exported using digital forms, which will make them more competitive. We see quite a few industries looking at this, and they're in the commodities side. It's iron ore, it's steel, it's metals, it's chemicals, it's petrochemicals, all looking at this. We also have customers in traditional industries like Villatex and in textiles and retail. But commodities, especially for letters of credit, are a key a key use case, and hopefully to see the ability to digitize and connect with partners, right, with TradeLens and the banks, because I think the key thing is going to be these networks to work together. No one can do it all. Trade is a lot more complicated than Expedia, to use your example before. There's specialties in shipping, in booking, in tracking, and the finance, and each one is their own ecosystem, and they have to figure out how to connect.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, I fully appreciate just how complex it is. I think it's a question from the customer or the client perspective. How do they start seeing all of these things starting to look more seamless? I just have a question regarding I guess KYC, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it more during the discussion. We've seen trade finance activities by some of the larger multinational banks decrease in Africa. And that's often because of their own internal bank controls around risk and compliance. How do you see, a platform like yours, given that so much data is now available, right, to many different people at the same time? Do you think that a technology like yours could reverse that trend, or at least, help with that issue?
Absolutely. I mean, having more digital data allows banks to make better decisions, make more in-time decisions, live time decisions. And not only is it going to, I think, make it easier for banks to lend, to bring up the lending amount, to also, a more inclusive group of customers, not just the big multinationals, but smaller customers. But as the earlier speaker said, there's a possibility of implementing new products. If you have data that you can verify, you have the history of a customer, you have the you have the history of customer, how they've done with this trading partner in the past. So you have some background there. You can see live streams of where the goods are, where it is in production. There's all sorts of potential for dynamic risk financing, more inclusive financing. They call it deep tier financing, whatever it is. And I know the banks, and probably Sam can talk about it, what the banks are looking at to leverage this data. But the first thing, it's got to be digital. And you got to digitize it and get it in, then you can start using it.
Sure. Perfect. Yes. And I think that's really what we're talking about, a sort of single digital backbone. And whether it's Expedia or something else, I mean, the point is, let's just start streamlining some of these 300-year-old processes. And Carl, I just want to ask you about the digital islands and the digital ecosystem. What's your sort of thinking on that?
I mean, absolutely. This is the 2 points on it. One is that something like Daniel's talking about, all the shipping information and booking and shipping and where the container, that's a whole ecosystem and knowledge base and group of experts. And it's different people in a corporate who manage that than who manage finance. And so even in the organization, there are different groups of people. So the digital islands are going to happen because you have different areas of expertise. And so these products and these networks have been built to follow certain areas. Now, I think the key thing is they communicate. And as Daniel said, and we used to call it 20 years ago, we called data inheritance, right? Key it in once, don't key it in twice, real simple, right? First get it digital, then share the information. And in Contour, we really look at the partner network is a big component of our future success, continuing successes, because we can't do everything. And we're happy to work with partners on a customer basis. So if a customer is in Nexus, if a bank or a corporate says, I use TradeLens, I use Contour, okay, we should talk, and let's talk. So that's why we're working with TradeLens. We have customers in common, right? Where we're sharing some of the information that's needed for the LC. We can get it from TradeLens. But the second thing is with all these digital islands, the other thing that I want to talk about is that, there's digital islands, but there's also competing systems out there. And there's also sometimes this worry, well, I don't want to start with so-and-so. Well, I'm going to wait for one system that manages all to start. And the way I sort of address that is digitalization is a journey, right? You're not going to digitalize. If you had one system, you're not going to do it all tomorrow. Because you're going to internally, companies and corporates and banks and shippers are going to have to learn how to digitize. And the live example we have now here, we're sitting on Zoom, right? If everyone said, well, I'm not going to start using VC until, I don't want to use Zoom and Teams and Skype and Blue Jeans and, other systems. Wait till they all coordinate, then I'll start talking. Well, no one have talked to each other for the last 20 months, right? So you have to start with one, and it's a learning journey, and we're all getting better at it.
Sure. Great. I absolutely agree. And Carl, how does a corporate in Africa talk to their banker about specifically using your platform? I know you already have the likes of a Cargill, for example, but we have many, many, many of those on the continent. So what advice would you like to give them?
Yeah, I think it's obviously we work with the corporates and the banks. There's a come directly to us. Come to Contour, www.contour.network, and talk to us. And the thing is, as Sam alluded to, is it's a group effort. You have to get your banks, you have to get your EBL providers like a TradeLens. You have to. There's different parties to join. To do an LC transaction, you need 4 parties: buyer, seller, buyer's bank, seller's bank. And what we do at Contour is it's our responsibility to bring the new players on. So once we talk to someone, a customer comes on board, we ask them who their counterparties are, who their counterparty banks are, continue to expand the network. And it's a snowball that's getting a little bit bigger, but it's growing quicker. We're adding almost one new corporate every day now into the platform. So it is going quicker, and we're learning how to do it. But I mean, from an Africa point of view, come talk to you and talk to your bank, right? Talk to your banks. I mean, Standard Chartered, they know it. They're there, and I think the bank can also be a great advisor to these different platforms as well, because they're going to be the one who's going to be really managing, the trade, the finance aspect of it. Sure. And Contour as a facilitator is passing that information electronically. And Sam said very right. I mean, if you're still sending faxes, then they're part of the problem. But the banks want stuff electronically, right? Whether it's to their own bank specific platforms or global platforms like ours. The banks want the information electronically. They don't want faxes and phone calls. So the more you interact with the bank, the more the bank is going to help you do it more efficiently.
Super. And